Papa, they think I don't know who killed you. Lara's voice cut through the drumming Lagos rain as she knelt beside the fresh grave. But I do. And I'm going to make him pay by becoming his wife. Thunder cracked overhead, mirroring the fracture in her chest where her heart used to be. 3 weeks since the bullet found Chief Adebayo during his campaign rally. 3 weeks since the police declared it a random robbery gone wrong. 3 weeks since Lara's world shattered, like glass on concrete. She pressed her palm against the wet marble headstone, feeling the carved letters of her father's name under her fingertips. The gun hidden beneath her black coat felt heavier than grief itself. Min-jae Kwon thinks he's untouchable in soul, she whispered. He has no idea what's coming for him. The rain soaked through her clothes, but she didn't move. Couldn't move. Not until she'd spoken every word of her vow aloud. I'm going to infiltrate his world, Papa. I'm going to make him fall in love with me. And then I'm going to destroy everything he's built from the inside. Lightning illuminated the cemetery, casting twisted shadows across the marble angels that seemed to weep alongside her. She pulled herself upright, mud clinging to her knees, and walked away from the only man who'd ever truly loved her. 2 months later, Lara stared at her reflection in the floor-to-ceiling mirror of Seoul's most exclusive styling salon. The woman looking back was unrecognizable, a masterpiece of calculated seduction. Gone was the earnest journalist who'd spent years chasing corruption stories through Lagos's political maze. In her place stood someone who could bring a mafia king to his knees. You look magnificent, Miss Chen, the stylist purred, adjusting the final curl of Lara's now platinum hair. She'd adopted the identity of Elena Chen, a half-Chinese, half-Nigerian heiress with a fabricated fortune in shipping logistics. Her new face was sculpted perfection, subtle enhancements that made her striking without looking artificial. The emerald cocktail dress clung to curves she'd never bothered to accentuate before. Every detail screamed wealth, sophistication, danger. He won't be able to resist you, her contact had promised. Park Sung-min worked in the shadows between law enforcement and organized crime, selling information to whoever paid best. Min-jae has a weakness for intelligent women who aren't afraid of him. Lara slipped the diamond bracelet over her wrist, each stone worth more than most people's yearly salary. The irony wasn't lost on her. She was using blood money from her father's life insurance to seduce his killer. The celestial grand ballroom pulsed with Seoul's criminal elite disguised as legitimate businessmen. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured light across faces that had ordered deaths with the same casual indifference as ordering wine. Lara moved through the crowd like a predator in designer heels, every step bringing her closer to her target. She spotted him before he noticed her, impossible not to. Min-jae Kwon commanded the room without trying, his presence a gravitational force that bent everyone else's orbit. 32 years old, dressed in a suit that cost more than most people's cars, with eyes like winter storms and a smile that promised both paradise and damnation. I should have turned around right then. But I didn't. And before I tell you why that decision would cost me everything I thought I knew about love and revenge, subscribe to Mystic Tale by Luna, because some secrets are too dangerous to keep buried. Lara approached the bar beside him, her movements calculated to appear accidental. She ordered in perfect Korean, letting her voice carry just enough accent to intrigue without seeming foreign. Whiskey neat, she said. Make it expensive. Min-jae turned toward her, those storm-gray eyes cataloging every detail of her appearance in seconds. His smile was razor-sharp. A woman who knows what she wants, he observed, his voice carrying the kind of authority that made grown men tremble. How refreshing. I find life's too short for hesitation, Lara replied, meeting his gaze without flinching. Don't you agree, mister?
Kwon.
Min-jae Kwon. He extended his hand, and she felt the calluses that spoke of violence beneath the manicured surface. And you are? Elena Chen. She let her fingers linger against his palm longer than propriety demanded. Pleasure to meet you. The pleasure is entirely mine, Miss Chen. Though I have to wonder, what brings such an intriguing woman to a gathering of Seoul's most entrepreneurial citizens? The question carried weight. He was testing her, probing for weakness or deception. Lara had prepared for this moment for months. I'm expanding my shipping operations into East Asia, she lied smoothly. Someone mentioned this party attracts people who understand the value of flexible business arrangements. Min-jae's laugh was like dark honey, sweet with an edge that could cut. Flexibility is indeed valuable in my line of work. Tell me, Miss Chen, what do you know about loyalty? I know it's the most expensive commodity in the world, Lara answered without hesitation, and that most people sell it far too cheaply. Something shifted in his expression, approval mixed with calculation. He leaned closer, his breath warm against her ear. Would you like to see something most of these people will never be privileged to witness? Lara's pulse quickened, but she kept her voice steady. I thought you'd never ask. He led her through a hidden door behind the champagne fountain, down a corridor lined with original artwork worth millions. The private elevator required a keycard and fingerprint scan. When the doors opened, they revealed his penthouse office, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's glittering skyline, walls lined with books in 7 languages, and a desk that had probably hosted negotiations worth billions. Impressive, Lara murmured, moving to the windows. The city spread below them like a circuit board of ambition and secrets. Power is only impressive if you know how to wield it, Min-jae said, pouring 2 glasses of wine that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Too many people confuse violence with strength. And you don't. Violence is a tool. Strength is knowing when not to use it. He handed her the wine, his fingers brushing hers again. You strike me as someone who understands the difference. Lara sipped the wine, buying time to process the unexpected complexity in his words. She'd expected a monster. Instead, she found herself facing a man who spoke like a philosopher and moved like a dancer on the edge of a blade. You're not what I expected, she admitted, allowing genuine curiosity to color her voice. And what did you expect? Someone less thoughtful. Min-jae moved closer, close enough that she could see flecks of silver in his gray eyes. Perhaps we should discuss business over dinner tomorrow night. I have a proposition that might interest someone with your particular talents. What makes you think I have particular talents? His smile was predatory now, all pretense of civility stripped away. Because Miss Elena Chen, or whoever you really are, women who infiltrate criminal galas with perfect cover stories and custom-forged identities usually do. Lara's blood turned to ice, but she forced herself to maintain eye contact. I have no idea what you mean. Of course you don't. He set down his wine glass and moved to his desk, pressing a hidden button. The wall screen lit up with surveillance footage. Lara at the styling salon, Lara meeting with Park Sung-min, Lara researching Min-jae's organization from her hotel room. The question isn't who you are, Min-jae continued, his voice silk over steel. The question is whether you're brave enough to see this game through to its conclusion. Lara's hand instinctively moved toward her purse, toward the small pistol hidden inside, but stopped when she saw his knowing smile. Dinner tomorrow, he repeated. 8 o'clock. My penthouse. Come armed if it makes you feel safer, though we both know it won't matter if I decide you're a threat. She lifted her chin, meeting his challenge with defiance. And if I refuse? Then you'll never find out whether I killed your father, or whether I'm the only one who can help you catch the people who actually did. The words hit her like a physical blow. He knew. He knew everything. 8 o'clock, she heard herself say. I'll be there. Min-jae's smile was triumphant and terrifying. Excellent. Oh, and Miss Chen? Wear something white. I'm thinking we might discuss marriage. Welcome to your new home, Mrs. Kwan. Min-jae's voice carried dark amusement as the elevator doors opened onto his Seoul penthouse. I trust you'll find the accommodations educational. Lara stepped into a world of calculated luxury, marble floors that reflected city lights, contemporary art worth more than small nations' GDP, and floor-to-ceiling windows that made the space feel suspended in the clouds. Everything was pristine, sterile, beautiful. A golden cage designed to house a very specific type of prey. The marriage was quite the spectacle, she said, setting down her single suitcase. Though I noticed you insisted on a private ceremony. Privacy has its advantages. He loosened his tie, the gesture somehow more intimate than their wedding kiss had been. Fewer witnesses to complicate things later. The wedding had been a fever dream, 72 hours from his proposal to their vows in a private chapel, witnessed only by his Lieutenant Jae-sung and a paid officiant who asked no questions. Lara had worn white as requested, though the dress felt more like armor than bridal wear. "Your room is through there," Min-jae indicated a hallway lined with original Picassos. "Unless you prefer to share mine immediately. I think we both know this marriage is a business arrangement. Business can be pleasurable." His eyes tracked her movement as she picked up her suitcase. "But I'm a patient man. Take all the time you need to adjust." Lara's new bedroom was larger than her entire Lagos apartment had been. The walk-in closet was already stocked with clothes in her exact size, designer pieces that screamed money and sophistication. Someone had done their homework. She waited until she heard Min-jae's footsteps retreat before pulling out her phone and texting Agent Hayes, her Interpol contact. "I'm inside." The response came immediately. "Maintain cover. Gather financial records. Location of main servers." Lara deleted the messages and began her real work. The room had been swept for listening devices. She'd expected that, but they'd missed the tiny transmitter sewn into the lining of her makeup case. She activated it with a touch, knowing Hayes would now have audio access to everything within 50 feet. A soft knock interrupted her setup. "Come in." A woman entered carrying a tea service, 50s, Korean, with the kind of respectful demeanor that spoke of decades in service. "I am Mrs. Park, the housekeeper. Mr. Kwon requested I bring you jasmine tea." "Thank you." Lara accepted the cup, inhaling the delicate scent. "How long have you worked for him?" 15 years, madam. Since he was very young." Something in the woman's tone suggested layers beneath the simple answer. Lara filed the information away for later exploration. "Mrs. Park, I hope you'll help me understand the household routines. I want to be a good wife." The housekeeper's smile was genuine. "Mr. Kwon is complex, but he is not cruel. You will learn this." After Mrs. Park left, Lara began her systematic exploration. The penthouse was a maze of contradictions, rooms filled with priceless art next to spaces that felt lived in and warm. Min-jae's private study contained thousands of books in multiple languages, including several on Korean history and philosophy that showed where from repeated reading. She found her first opportunity that evening. Min-jae had left for a business meeting, and the penthouse felt different in his absence, less charged, more vulnerable. Lara slipped into his office and began photographing documents with her phone's hidden app that transmitted everything to Hayes in real time. Financial records revealed a network spanning 3 continents. Shell companies, legitimate businesses, and careful layers of legal protection that had taken years to construct. But there were gaps, coded references to operations she couldn't decipher. "Find what you're looking for?" Lara spun around, heart hammering. Min-jae stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. She'd been so focused on the documents, she hadn't heard him return. "I was looking for a pen," she said, closing the folder casually. "I wanted to write in my journal." "In my private files?" The desk drawer was open. "I didn't realize." "Don't." His voice cut through her explanation like a blade. "Whatever game you're playing, don't insult my intelligence with amateur lies." He moved toward her with predatory grace, each step calculated to crowd her space. Lara forced herself not to retreat. "I don't know what you mean." "You know exactly what I mean." He stopped inches away, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and complex, like the man wearing it. "The question is whether you're working for law enforcement, a rival organization, or someone else entirely." "I'm working for no one but myself." "Now that," Min-jae said, his hand reaching past her to close the folder she'd been photographing, "I actually believe." The next morning brought unexpected developments. Over breakfast, perfectly prepared by Mrs. Park, Min-jae slid a cell phone across the marble table. "Your new number," he explained. The old phone had security vulnerabilities. Lara's stomach dropped. Her contact with Hayes was severed. "I need my personal phone for business." Your shipping business? Min-jae's smile was razor-sharp. I took the liberty of looking into Chin Logistics. Fascinating company. Established 3 months ago, impressive paper trail, but curiously, no actual ships. We're a brokerage firm. We coordinate. You coordinate fiction very well. I particularly admired the detail work on your customs documentation. He sipped his coffee like they were discussing the weather. Professional quality forgeries aren't cheap. Lara met his gaze without flinching. What do you want? Honesty would be refreshing. You first. Did you kill my father? The question hung in the air between them like a blade. Min-jae set down his cup with deliberate precision. Chief Adebayo was shot during a campaign rally in Lagos, he said finally. 3 bullets to the chest, 1 to the head. Professional work. That's not an answer. I didn't pull the trigger. But you ordered it. I've never ordered a hit on a Nigerian politician. His voice carried absolute certainty. It's bad for business, and worse for international relations. Lara studied his face, searching for tells. She'd interviewed enough liars to recognize the signs, micro-expressions, involuntary gestures, vocal stress patterns. Min-jae displayed none of them. Then why do my sources say your organization was involved? Because someone wanted you to believe that. He leaned forward, his expression shifting from predatory to something resembling genuine interest. Tell me, who provided this information? A journalist doesn't reveal sources. A journalist also doesn't marry her target without verification. Unless. Understanding dawned in his eyes. You're not here to expose me. You're here for revenge. Lara said nothing. How refreshingly honest. Min-jae's laugh held dark amusement. I wondered why such an intelligent woman would construct such an elaborate infiltration plan. Revenge explains the desperation. I'm not desperate. You married a man you believed was your father's killer based on second-hand intelligence. That's either desperation or insanity. Heat flashed through Lara's chest. Don't what? Point out that you've potentially wasted months of your life chasing the wrong target. He stood, moving around the table with fluid grace. Or suggest that whoever fed you that information might have had their own agenda? My source was reliable. Was he? Min-jae stopped behind her chair, his presence a warm pressure against her back. Because from where I sit, it looks like someone manipulated a grieving daughter into becoming my problem. I'm nobody's problem. No, he agreed, his voice dropping to a whisper near her ear. You're nobody's victim either. Which makes you dangerous in ways I don't think you fully understand yet. That afternoon, Min-jae assigned her a bodyguard, Kim Jae-sung, his second-in-command, whose smile never reached his eyes. Ostensibly for her protection, but Lara recognized surveillance when she saw it. Mrs. Kwon requires an escort to her shopping appointment, Jae-sung announced, appearing in the penthouse lobby where she'd been waiting for her driver. I prefer to shop alone. Unfortunately, that's not possible. Security concerns. They rode to Gangnam's luxury district in tense silence. Jae-sung maintained professional distance while watching her every move. At the boutique, he positioned himself with clear sight lines to all exits while she pretended to browse designer dresses she had no intention of buying. The real purpose of the trip was the bathroom break, 90 seconds to activate the backup communication device Hayes had given her and upload the photos she'd managed to take. But when she tried to connect, the device showed no signal. Signal interference, the sales associate asked helpfully when she noticed Lara's frustrated expression. It happens sometimes with all the security equipment the wealthy clients prefer. Very sophisticated electronic countermeasures. Lara's blood turned cold. Min-jae wasn't just watching her, he was actively jamming her communications. That evening, she found a gift waiting in her room, a small velvet box containing diamond earrings worth more than most people's houses. Beautiful, she said at dinner, wearing them despite herself. They belong to my mother, Min-jae replied. She died when I was 12. The simple statement carried weight. Lara found herself studying his face for the child he'd been, orphaned young, forced to grow up in a world where weakness meant death. I'm sorry, death is part of life. Learning to survive the aftermath is what separates the strong from the forgotten. He cut his steak with surgical precision. Your father's death must have been educational. Devastating would be more accurate. Devastation can be educational if you let it teach you instead of consuming you. Lara set down her fork. Is that supposed to be comfort? It's supposed to be truth. Your father is dead. Revenge won't resurrect him, but survival might honor his memory. Survival isn't enough. Then what is? Justice. Minjae's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. Justice is a luxury most people can't afford. Power, however, is something you can take. After dinner, he led her to a part of the penthouse she hadn't seen, a private gym equipped with everything from traditional weights to specialized combat training equipment. The shooting range was soundproofed and professionally designed. Can you use one? He indicated the array of firearms secured behind glass. I know the basics. Show me. He selected a Glock 19, compact, reliable, deadly in trained hands. Lara accepted the weapon, checking the chamber and safety with movements her father had taught her years ago. Target practice or something more advanced? Depends on your skill level. Lara loaded the magazine and took her stance. The first shot went wide. The second was closer. By the fifth, she was consistently hitting center mass at 15 yards. Not bad, Minjae observed. But not good enough to survive what's coming. What's coming? The people who actually killed your father have realized you're not going to stop investigating. They're beginning to see you as a liability. Ice formed in Lara's veins. How do you know that? Because they reached out to me yesterday. They want to hire my organization to eliminate a problematic journalist who's been asking uncomfortable questions about Chief Adebayo's death. The gun trembled in her hands. And I told them I'd handle it personally. His smile was predatory. After all, you are my wife now. That makes you my responsibility. You're going to kill me. I'm going to keep you alive. There's a difference. He moved behind her, his hands covering hers on the weapon. But first, you need to learn to shoot like you mean it. His body pressed against her back, solid and warm and terrifyingly reassuring. His hands guided her aim, and when she pulled the trigger this time, the bullet found the target's heart. Better, he murmured against her ear. Now again. And this time, imagine the target is whoever sent you after me instead of going after them directly. Lara's next shot was perfect. Very good. Now tell me, who is your source? Because tomorrow we're going to pay them a visit. She turned in his arms, suddenly aware of how close they were standing. I can't. You can. The question is whether you trust me enough to try. Why would you help me? Because, my dear wife, someone played us both. And I don't like being manipulated any more than you do. His thumb traced along her jawline, and for a moment, Lara forgot how to breathe. The man holding her was dangerous, complex, and possibly the only person standing between her and a bullet. The attraction she felt was as terrifying as it was undeniable. Besides, Minjae added, his voice dropping to a whisper, revenge is so much sweeter when it's shared. Park Sung-min sold you a lie wrapped in just enough truth to make it believable. Minjae's voice cut through the soul mourning as they sat in his armored Mercedes, surveillance photos spread across the leather seat between them. He's been feeding information to 3 different organizations, including mine. Lara stared at the images, her contact meeting with known triad members, accepting envelopes of cash, boarding flights to cities where rival syndicates operated. The evidence was damning and comprehensive. This doesn't prove anything about my father's death. No, but this does. He handed her a tablet displaying bank records. The day before Chief Adebayo's assassination, Park received 2 million won from an account traced to the Shadow Serpents, a faction that broke away from my organization 2 years ago. The numbers blurred as Lara processed the implications. You're saying he set me up to come after you? I'm saying someone wanted you focused on me instead of them. The question is why. Minjae's finger traced the transaction history. These payments go back 18 months. Long before your father announced his presidential campaign. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold the phone. Have you ever felt that moment when everything you believed just shatters? Tell me in the comments, because right now, I need to know I'm not the only one who's been this terrified of the truth. Lara's world tilted sideways. Every assumption she'd built her revenge plan on was crumbling like a house made of cards in a hurricane. The Shadow Serpents, she said finally. Who leads them? My former business partner, Choi Dae-hyun. Min Jae's voice carried old pain disguised as indifference. We had philosophical differences about the direction of our operations. What kind of differences? He believed power came from fear. I believe it comes from respect. His fingers drummed against the tablet screen. The split cost both our organizations significantly. Blood was shed. Something in his tone made Lara look closer at his expression. She saw carefully controlled grief in the tightness around his eyes. What blood? My sister's. The words hit like a physical blow. Lara watched Min Jae's mask slip for just a moment, revealing the raw wound beneath his controlled exterior. Dae-hyun killed her? He ordered her execution to force my compliance with a particularly brutal contract. When I refused, he made good on the threat. Min Jae's voice was steady, but his knuckles were white where they gripped the tablet. She was 19, a university student studying international law. She'd never hurt anyone in her life. Understanding flooded through Lara like ice water. You've been hunting them too. For 2 years. Your father's death gave them exactly what they wanted. A grieving daughter pointed at their biggest rival instead of at them. He met her gaze directly. They used your pain as a weapon against both of us. The Mercedes pulled into an underground garage beneath a building that looked abandoned from the outside. Min Jae led her through a series of security checkpoints that would have impressed government facilities, finally stopping at a steel door marked only with Korean characters. What is this place? Somewhere the Shadow Serpents will never find us. He pressed his palm to a biometric scanner. My sister's sanctuary project. She wanted to create safe houses for abuse victims. The door opened onto something unexpected, a warmly lit space with comfortable furniture, children's toys, and walls covered in artwork clearly created by young hands. Despite the fortress-level security, it felt like a home. Jimin designed this herself, Min Jae said quietly. She believed everyone deserved a place where they could heal. A woman in her 40s approached from the kitchen area, her smile brightening when she saw Min Jae. You brought a guest. Dr. Han, this is Lara, my wife. The introduction came naturally, though Lara noticed he'd used her real name. Lara, Dr. Han runs the psychological support programs Jimin established. Your sister had a beautiful vision, Lara said, accepting the woman's warm handshake. She had her brother's heart, Dr. Han replied, though he'd never admit it. Min Jae's expression softened almost imperceptibly. Dr. Han, we need to use the secure communication center. Of course. I'll prepare tea. The communication center was hidden behind what appeared to be a supply closet. Inside, banks of computers and encrypted transmission equipment hummed quietly. Min Jae activated several screens displaying surveillance footage from locations across Seoul. These are Shadow Serpent safe houses, he explained. I've been mapping their operations since Jimin's death. Lara studied the images, warehouses, luxury apartments, and what appeared to be a fortified compound on the city's outskirts. How many people are we talking about? Core leadership? Maybe 20. Foot soldiers and contractors? Several hundred. He zoomed in on one particular building. But the man who ordered both murders, your father's and my sister's, he's here. The screen showed a penthouse not unlike Min Jae's own, but where his felt lived in despite its luxury. This space looked sterile and cold. Through the windows, Lara could see a man in his 50s pacing while talking on a phone. Choi Dae-hyun. The man who destroyed both our families. Min Jae's voice carried quiet fury. The question is whether you want justice or revenge. What's the difference? Justice puts him in prison. Revenge puts him in the ground. Lara stared at the man who'd manipulated her grief, who'd turned her into a weapon against an innocent person while her father's real killer walked free. The rage that had sustained her for months crystallized into something harder and more focused. I want both. Then we work together. Min-jae turned to face her fully. But you need to understand, once we start this, there's no going back. The shadow serpents don't take prisoners, and they don't show mercy. Neither do I.
Good.
His smile was sharp and deadly. Because they're not going to wait much longer to move against you. As if summoned by his words, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Min-jae was moving before the first echo faded, pulling Lara toward a wall panel that opened to reveal weapons and body armor. How did they find us? Lara demanded, strapping on the tactical vest he thrust at her. They didn't. They found you. He handed her a modified assault rifle and spare magazines. Your old phone, the one I replaced yesterday, had a tracker I missed. Through the facility's security monitors, Lara could see black SUVs surrounding the building. Armed figures in tactical gear were already breaching the entrances. Dr. Han and the residents? Safe room, 3 levels down, designed to withstand direct missile strikes. Min-jae's hands moved with practiced efficiency, loading weapons and activating defensive systems. Our job is to make sure they don't need to use it. The first explosion rocked the building. Emergency lighting cast everything in hellish red as the main power grid went down. Through the smoke and chaos, Lara could hear boots pounding against steel stairs. This way. Min-jae led her through a hidden passage she hadn't noticed before. Emergency exit leads to the subway tunnels. They emerged into Seoul's underground transit system just as the second wave of explosions shook dust from the tunnel ceiling. Min-jae pulled her into an alcove as the rumble of an approaching train filled the air. The 11:47 Express, he said, checking his watch. Right on time. We're getting on a subway train? We're getting under one. He opened what looked like a maintenance hatch. Service tunnels run parallel to the main lines. Jimin designed them as escape routes. The narrow passage forced them to move single file through darkness broken only by Min-jae's flashlight. Behind them, Lara could hear distant shouts and the unmistakable sound of pursuit. How far? She whispered. 2 kilometers to the next exit point. His voice was steady despite their desperate circumstances. There's a safe house near Hongdae. We can regroup there. They climbed for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, finally emerging through a disguised access point in an alley behind a busy market. Min-jae's phone buzzed immediately. Dr. Han, he answered. Status report. Lara watched his expression shift from relief to cold fury as he listened. Understood. Maintain lockdown until I give the all clear. He ended the call and turned to her. Everyone's safe. But they took the building apart looking for something specific.
What? You.
This wasn't a kill mission, it was a kidnapping attempt. Rain began falling as they made their way through Seoul's crowded streets, just 2 more people hurrying to escape the weather. But Lara could feel the danger following them like a shadow with teeth. The safe house was a modest apartment above a traditional Korean restaurant. Inside, it was spartanly furnished, but equipped with everything they needed: weapons, communication equipment, and medical supplies. Why take me alive? Lara asked as Min-jae swept the apartment for listening devices. Because they need to know how much you've learned and who else you've told. He completed his security check and activated a signal jammer. A dead journalist becomes a martyr. A disappeared one just becomes a statistic. And now they know we're working together. That changes their calculations significantly. He moved to the window, checking sightlines and escape routes with professional thoroughness. Dae-hyun won't risk a direct assault against both our organizations. So, what does he do instead? Min-jae was quiet for a long moment, his expression troubled. He makes us choose between saving each other and completing our mission. As if responding to a cue, his phone rang. The caller ID showed only a number, but Min-jae's face went granite hard when he saw it. Choi Dae-hyun. Hello, old friend. The voice on speakerphone was cultured, almost pleasant. I understand congratulations are in order. Marriage suits you. What do you want? A conversation. Face to face. Just like old times. The false warmth in Dae-hyun's voice made Lara's skin crawl. Bring your lovely bride. I'm quite curious to meet the daughter of Chief Adebayo. Min-jae's eyes met Lara's. She saw the calculation there, the weighing of impossible options. When and where? Tomorrow night. The Celestial Grand, where you first met your wife, I believe. How poetic. Ballroom level. Private dining room 7. Come armed if it makes you feel better. The line went dead. It's a trap, Lara said immediately. Of course it's a trap. Min-jae set down the phone with careful precision. The question is whether we spring it on our terms or his. There's a third option, which is, we don't go. We disappear. Start over somewhere else. Min-jae studied her face for a long moment. Is that what you want? To run? Lara thought about her father, about Min-jae's sister, about all the people Daehyun had destroyed in his climb to power. The rage that had brought her to Seoul was still there, but it had transformed into something colder and more purposeful.
No.
I want to finish this. Even knowing it might kill us both? Especially knowing that. She moved closer to him, close enough to see the silver flecks in his storm-gray eyes. Some things are worth dying for. And some people are worth living for. His hand cupped her face, thumb tracing the line of her cheekbone. Which are you choosing? Before she could answer, he kissed her. Not the performative kiss of their wedding ceremony, but something desperate and real and full of all the words they hadn't said. Lara melted into him, her hands fisting in his shirt as rain drummed against the windows. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. That complicates things, she whispered. Everything worth doing is complicated. His forehead rested against hers. The question is whether you trust me enough to walk into hell together. Lara thought about the choice she'd been carrying, the USB drive hidden in her jacket containing everything Hayes needed to destroy Min-jae's organization. One text message would end the man she was falling in love with. Another would cement their alliance against the people who'd destroyed both their families. She pulled out her phone and deleted Hayes' contact information. I trust you, she said. Now, let's go kill the bastard who murdered our family. The ballroom looks exactly the same as the night we met. Lara's voice carried forced lightness as they approached the Celestial Grand's private dining level. How romantic. Min-jae's hand rested against the small of her back, his touch both protective and possessive. Daehyun always had a flair for theater. He wants us to remember how this story began before he ends it. They'd spent the morning preparing, mapping the hotel's layout, identifying escape routes, coordinating with Min-jae's most trusted lieutenants positioned throughout the building. Lara wore a sleek black dress that concealed body armor and 3 weapons. Min-jae's tuxedo was tailored to hide enough firepower to start a small war. Are you certain about Hayes? Min-jae asked as they entered the elevator. He's been feeding information to Daehyun for months. The attack on the sanctuary wasn't random. They knew exactly where to find us. Lara's jaw tightened. I trusted him with everything. Trust is a luxury we can't afford tonight. The elevator climbed silently toward their fate. Through the glass walls, Seoul's lights twinkled like fallen stars, beautiful and distant. In a few hours, both of them might be dead. The thought should have terrified her, but instead Lara felt a strange calm settling over her shoulders like armor. Whatever happens, she said quietly, I want you to know. Save it for after. Min-jae's fingers intertwined with hers. We're going to survive this. Both of us. Private Dining Room 7 was a study in understated elegance. Crystal chandeliers casting warm light over mahogany furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, and a single table set for 3. Choi Daehyun stood with his back to them, silhouetted against the window like a figure from a nightmare. Punctual as always. He turned, revealing a face that belonged in corporate boardrooms rather than criminal enterprises. 50s, distinguished silver hair, the kind of smile that closed million-dollar deals and ordered executions with equal ease.
Please sit.
I took the liberty of ordering wine. The bottle on the table was worth more than most people's yearly salary. Min-jae pulled out Lara's chair with exaggerated courtesy, his eyes never leaving Daehyun's hands. You're looking well, Min-jae. Marriage agrees with you. Cut the pleasantries. You wanted to talk. Always so direct. It's what made us such effective partners. Dae-hyun poured wine with practiced precision. And such dangerous enemies. Lara studied the man who'd orchestrated her father's death.
He seemed so ordinary, so civilized.
Nothing in his appearance hinted at the monster beneath the expensive suit. You killed my father. I eliminated a political obstacle. Your father was gathering evidence about certain business arrangements that would have been inconvenient. Dae-hyun's tone suggested they were discussing the weather. Nothing personal. It became personal when you manipulated me into coming after Min-jae instead of you. Ah yes, your revenge quest. Quite touching, really. Though I must admit, I didn't expect you to actually marry him. His smile turned predatory. That was an unexpected development. Min-jae's hand moved almost imperceptibly closer to his jacket. What do you want, Dae-hyun? What I've always wanted: control. The shadow serpents have grown beyond what either of us imagined when we parted ways. We're ready to absorb what remains of your organization. Over my dead body, if necessary. Dae-hyun's mask of civility slipped for a moment, revealing the viper beneath. Though I'd prefer a more elegant solution. He reached into his jacket, and both Min-jae and Lara tensed. But instead of a weapon, he produced a tablet displaying financial records. Your organization's entire network, detailed down to the last offshore account. Bank routing numbers, shell company structures, personnel files. His finger traced across the screen. Everything needed to dismantle 2 decades of careful construction. Lara's blood turned to ice. She recognized some of the information, details she'd photographed and transmitted to Hayes during her first weeks in the penthouse. How did you get this? Your Interpol friend has been quite cooperative. Agent Hayes sent his regards, by the way. Along with his resignation from law enforcement, Dae-hyun's smile was razor-sharp. It turns out international police salaries are quite modest compared to private sector opportunities. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. Hayes had been her anchor, her connection to justice and legitimacy. Everything she'd risked, every piece of intelligence she'd gathered, had been feeding directly to her father's killers. You son of a bitch. Language, my dear. We're civilized people. Dae-hyun sipped his wine with deliberate calm. Now, here's my proposal. Min-jae surrenders control of his operations to me. In exchange, I ensure Mrs. Kwan's continued good health. And if I refuse, then your lovely bride disappears. Tragically, along with anyone else who might complicate my transition to Seoul's primary criminal authority. Min-jae was utterly still, his expression carved from granite. Lara could practically see him calculating odds, weighing options, preparing for violence. I need time to consider. Of course. Shall we say 5 minutes? Dae-hyun checked his expensive watch. I'm afraid the window for negotiation closes rather abruptly after that. Why the rush? Because in 6 minutes, Agent Hayes will transmit everything he's collected about your organization to law enforcement agencies in 17 countries. Unless, of course, I send him a message indicating our business has been concluded satisfactorily. The trap's true scope revealed itself with crystalline clarity. Surrender meant death. Refusal meant exposure and destruction. Dae-hyun had engineered a perfect lose-lose scenario. But he'd made one crucial mistake. He'd underestimated what Lara was willing to sacrifice for justice. There's a third option, she said quietly. Both men turned toward her. Which is? Dae-hyun's voice carried amused condescension. Hayes isn't the only one with copies of that information. Lara reached into her purse, her movements slow and deliberate. I've been recording every conversation, photographing every document, mapping every operation for months. She placed her phone on the table, its screen showing an active live stream to multiple news outlets and government agencies. Everything you just confessed, your admission to ordering my father's murder, your attempted extortion of Min-jae, your corruption of a federal agent, it's all being broadcast live to every major news network and law enforcement agency in the world. Dae-hyun's composure cracked for the first time. You're bluffing. Am I? Lara's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. Check your news feeds. He grabbed his own phone, fingers flying across the screen. The color drained from his face as breaking news alerts began flooding his device. You clever little bitch. I learned from the best. She gestured toward Min-jae. My husband taught me that power comes from being 3 steps ahead of your enemies. Dae-hyun's hand moved toward his jacket, but Min-jae was faster. The gun appeared in his palm like magic, its barrel aimed directly at the other man's heart. I wouldn't. You think this changes anything? Dae-hyun's voice carried desperate fury. Even if I'm exposed, the shadow serpents will continue. My death won't bring back your precious sister or her father. No, Min-jae agreed, but it will feel good. Wait. Lara's voice cut through the tension. He's more valuable alive. Explain. The shadow serpent's entire command structure, their international connections, their financial networks, he can give us everything. She met Dae-hyun's gaze with cold calculation. In exchange for life in prison instead of a bullet. I'll never. You'll do exactly what we tell you. Min-jae's voice carried absolute authority, because the alternative is a very slow, very painful death in a very private location. The standoff stretched like a wire about to snap. Then footsteps echoed in the hallway outside, multiple sets, moving with military precision. Expecting company? Lara asked. Dae-hyun's smile returned, triumphant and vicious. Insurance. Did you really think I'd come here alone? The dining room door exploded inward. Armed figures in tactical gear flooded through, weapons trained on Min-jae and Lara. But something was wrong. Their movements were too coordinated, their equipment too familiar. About time, Min-jae said calmly. I was beginning to think you'd gotten lost. Confusion flickered across Dae-hyun's face as he realized the tactical team wasn't his. They were Min-jae's people, led by Jae-sung, whose grin was positively feral. Sir, the building is secure. We've neutralized 14 Shadow Serpent operatives and detained Agent Hayes. Excellent work. Min-jae never lowered his weapon. Mr. Choi was just agreeing to cooperate fully with international authorities. I was not. The gunshot was deafeningly loud in the enclosed space. Dae-hyun screamed as the bullet shattered his kneecap, sending him crashing to the floor in agony. That was for Jimin, Min-jae said quietly. The next one is for Chief Adebayo. Stop. Please. Dae-hyun's composure had completely shattered. I'll tell you everything. Bank accounts, safe houses, personnel files, everything. I know you will. Lara knelt beside him, her voice soft and deadly. Because if you don't, I'll let my husband get creative. And he has 2 years of grief to work through. You're both insane. No, Min-jae corrected. We're both survivors. There's a difference. 3 hours later, they stood on the penthouse balcony watching Seoul's sunrise paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. The city sprawled below them like a conquered kingdom, beautiful and terrible, and theirs. Dae-hyun will live, Min-jae reported, ending a call with his medical contact. Long enough to testify against the entire Shadow Serpent network. And Hayes? Singing like a canary. Interpol is very interested in his career change. He moved behind her, his arms encircling her waist. We did it. Both our families are avenged. Lara leaned back against his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. What happens now? Now we rebuild. The Shadow Serpent's territory, their connections, their business relationships. All of it needs new management. His lips brushed against her ear. Interested in becoming a crime queen? That depends. What kind of crimes are we talking about? The lucrative kind, with minimal bloodshed and maximum profit. He turned her in his arms, his expression serious. I meant what I said about changing how things work. Jimin always believed power should protect people, not exploit them. And you think we can do that? Build something better from the ashes of something rotten? I think we can try. Together. Lara studied his face in the morning light, the sharp cheekbones that spoke of aristocratic breeding, the scars that told stories of violence survived, the eyes that had seen too much death but still held hope for something better. Together, she agreed. Min-jae's kiss tasted like victory and new beginnings. When they broke apart, both were smiling. There is one small complication, he said, pulling out his phone to show her a news alert. What now? The Seoul Metropolitan Police would very much like to interview the happy couple about last night's events. Apparently, live streaming confessions and gun battles in luxury hotels attracts official attention. Lara laughed, actually laughed, for the first time in months. Let them come. I'm a journalist, remember? I know how to spin a story. And I'm a legitimate businessman with excellent lawyers and very charitable tax records. His grin was wicked. Besides, what are they going to arrest us for? Citizens' arrest of known criminals? Providing evidence of international conspiracy? Performing a public service? They stood together watching the city wake up below them, two survivors who'd found something worth living for in each other. The war was over. The future stretched ahead like an unwritten story, full of possibilities. Then Min Jae's phone buzzed with an encrypted message that made his expression shift from contentment to cold alertness. What is it? He showed her the screen. The Crimson Crown remembers its debts. You cannot escape the past. Signed, the Jade Dragon. Lara felt ice form in her veins. Who's the Jade Dragon? Someone I hoped was dead. Min Jae's voice carried old fear disguised as anger. It seems our victory celebration was premature. Another enemy? The worst kind. Family. As if summoned by their conversation, the penthouse elevator chimed softly. The doors opened to reveal a woman in her 30s, elegant, deadly, with Min Jae's eyes and a smile like winter moonlight. Hello, little brother, she said in perfect English. Did you miss me? The champagne glasses on the table exploded as a sniper's bullet struck the crystal. The woman, who was supposed to be dead, stepped calmly over the shards. We have so much to discuss.